Have you ever trusted someone so much, only to discover their true face was a mask hiding terrible secrets? In the quiet town of Agbaja, where everyone knew everyone, there was a priest, loved, respected, and trusted. But behind his holy robes, he carried a darkness that shattered lives. This is the story of Chidi and his sister Amaka, a tale of innocence lost, secrets buried, and the fight for justice. But let me warn you, this isn't just any story. It's one that will make your heart race, your fists clench, and your eyes tear up. Because sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who harm us the deepest. Now let's begin.
Subscribe to my channel.
The church bell in Agbaja town rang every morning, loud and proud, its sound bouncing off the clay walls of the houses and waking everyone up. Children rushed to fetch water. Women prepared pots of steaming yam porridge, and men chatted lazily by the town square before heading to their farms. Chidi, just 12 years old, was already dressed in his white altar boy robe. He felt important whenever he wore it, like he was doing something special for God. Chidi, hurry up. Father Martin is waiting for you at the parish house, his mother called from the kitchen. Yes, Mama, he replied, gulping down the last piece of bread dipped in hot tea before rushing out with his small bag. The parish house was a short walk from their home, tucked behind the big church with its tall stained glass windows. Father Martin was already waiting, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the early morning sun. He smiled warmly as Chidi approached. Chidi, good to see you. Did you sleep well? Yes, Father, Chidi replied, his voice full of respect. The day went as usual, helping prepare for Mass, lighting candles, and making sure everything was perfect. Father Martin's voice echoed through the church during the sermon, soothing and wise. People admired him, especially Chidi's parents, who treated him like family. But everything changed one Sunday evening. It was late, and the parish house was quiet. Chidi and the other altar boys were preparing to sleep when Father Martin called for him. Chidi, come to my room for a moment, he said, his voice calm. Chidi hesitated. It was unusual for Father Martin to call anyone this late, but he didn't want to upset him. He walked down the dim hallway, the wooden floor creaking under his feet. When he entered the room, Father Martin closed the door behind him. Sit, Father Martin said, pointing to the edge of the bed. Chidi sat down, clutching his hands nervously. What happened next left Chidi confused and scared. Father Martin leaned in, his voice low and kind, and began asking Chidi to do things that felt wrong. Things no one had ever spoken to him about. Don't worry, Chidi, Father Martin said softly. You're special. God will forgive anything we do here. This is our little secret. Chidi felt trapped. He didn't know how to say no to a man of God, someone his parents adored and trusted. He obeyed, but deep inside he felt like something had broken. The next morning, Father Martin acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled, joked, and led the church in prayers. But for Chidi, everything felt different. His heart was heavy, his eyes darting nervously whenever Father Martin looked his way. Weeks turned into months, and Chidi found himself caught in a terrible cycle. Every weekend at the parish house was a nightmare he couldn't escape. He didn't know how to tell his parents. How could he? They trusted Father Martin more than anyone. But Chidi wasn't the only one. One day, his older sister Amaka was asked to help clean the parish house. She was 16, vibrant and full of life, always joking and singing. She left that evening with a bright smile, promising to return before nightfall. But she didn't come home until the next morning, her face pale and her eyes distant. Amaka, what happened? Are you okay? Chidi asked, worried. I'm fine, she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. But she wasn't fine. Chidi began noticing how Father Martin treated Amaka. His smiles lingered too long, his words too sweet. Chidi's unease grew. One night, he overheard their parents talking. Father Martin is such a good man, Mama said, her voice full of admiration. He's always looking out for our family. Chidi clenched his fists, the words boiling inside him. He wanted to shout, to tell them everything. But fear held him back. What if they didn't believe him? What if they blamed him, just like they always scolded him when he made mistakes? Then one day, something happened that shattered the fragile peace in their home. Amaka was feeling unwell. She stayed in bed, her face pale, refusing to eat. Their mother thought it was malaria and gave her herbs to drink, but her condition didn't improve. After days of worsening symptoms, their father decided to take her to the hospital. When they returned, the atmosphere in the house was heavy. Mama looked worried, her hands trembling as she folded a piece of cloth. "What did the doctor say?" she asked, her voice shaky. Their father hesitated before replying, "Amaka is pregnant." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Mama gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Pregnant? Amaka, how?" "Oh!" Amaka didn't answer. She stared at the floor, silent tears streaming down her face. "Amaka, answer me!" their father shouted. It's Father Martin," she finally whispered. The room went silent. "What?" Mama screamed. "Don't you dare lie about a man of God." Chidi's heart raced. He wanted to scream, "She's telling the truth." But he froze, his voice trapped in his throat. Amaka's revelation was the beginning of a storm that would shake their family and the entire town.
Subscribe to my channel.
Amaka's words hung in the air like a thundercloud, heavy and suffocating. Mama paced the small living room, wringing her hands as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Father Martin?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "The man we trusted. This must be a lie. Amaka, you're just trying to cover your shame." Amaka sobbed silently, her shoulders shaking with every breath. "I'm not lying, Mama. I'm not." Papa stood still, his face a mask of disbelief. "Amaka, you better tell us the truth. If you've been sneaking around with boys, don't drag Father Martin's name into your mess." Chidi couldn't take it anymore. He gripped the edge of his chair, his heart pounding like a drum. "She's not lying," he blurted out. Everyone turned to him, startled. "Father Martin, he does things to me too," Chidi stammered, his voice breaking. "He's not who you think he is." The room went silent again, but this time the silence was sharp, like the edge of a knife. "Chidi, what nonsense are you saying?" Mama demanded. "You? A boy? Don't speak such foolishness." "But it's true," Chidi shouted, tears streaming down his face. "Every weekend at the parish house, he hurts me." Papa's face darkened, his fists clenching. "Enough of this madness. You both want to destroy this family with your lies? Do you know what you're saying about a priest? About a man of God?" The next few days were a blur of anger and denial. Mama and Papa refused to believe them, choosing instead to blame Amaka for bringing shame to the family. They decided to handle the situation quietly, taking Amaka to a doctor in a nearby town to terminate the pregnancy. When they returned, Amaka was a shadow of herself. She barely spoke, her once bright eyes now dull and lifeless. Mama treated her coldly, scolding her for every little mistake. "You've ruined our name," she hissed one afternoon. "Do you know what people would say if they found out? Thank God we stopped it in time." Chidi watched his sister shrink into herself, and a deep anger began to grow inside him. How could his parents ignore the truth? How could they let Father Martin get away with everything? One evening, Chidi overheard Mama talking to a neighbor outside. "Father Martin is such a blessing," Mama said, her voice warm. "He's done so much for our family." Chidi clenched his fist, now biting his lip to keep from shouting. He couldn't stand it anymore. Father Martin was still walking freely, preaching every Sunday, smiling as if he were innocent. That night, Chidi made a decision. If his parents wouldn't believe them, he would find someone who would. Chidi remembered a woman in the church, Mama Ngozi, who was known for speaking her mind. She wasn't afraid to confront anyone, not even the elders. Early one morning, Chidi sneaked out of the house and went to her compound. "Mama Ngozi, please, I need your help," he said, his voice trembling. She looked at him with concern. "Chidi, what's wrong?" Why are you out so early? Chidi hesitated, tears filling his eyes. It's about Father Martin. He's not who you think he is. Mama Ngozi's expression turned serious. She motioned for him to sit and listened as he poured out everything. The nights at the parish house, Amaka's pregnancy, and the terrible secrets Father Martin had been hiding. When Chidi finished, Mama Ngozi was silent for a long time. Then she stood up, her face set with determination. "This must stop," she said firmly. "We cannot let him continue to harm others." The following Sunday, during the church service, something unexpected happened. As Father Martin stood at the altar delivering his sermon, Mama Ngozi rose from her seat. "Father Martin," she called out, her voice echoing through the church. He paused, startled. "Yes, Mama Ngozi, is something wrong?" "Yes, something is very wrong," she said, stepping forward. "I know what you've been doing to the children in this church." Gasps filled the room. People turned to look at her, then at Father Martin, whose face had gone pale. "Don't act innocent," Mama Ngozi continued. "Chidi and Amaka have told me everything. How many more children have you hurt, Father Martin? How many more lives will you destroy?" Father Martin stammered, his voice shaking. I don't know what you're talking about. These are false accusations." But the damage was done. Whispers spread like wildfire, and soon the entire congregation was buzzing with shock and disbelief. That evening, the church elders called a meeting. Chidi and Amaka were brought in to tell their story, their voices trembling as they recounted the horrors they had endured. Some people believed them, while others defended Father Martin, refusing to accept that a priest could do such things. But then, more voices began to speak up. Other altar boys came forward, their faces pale with fear as they shared their own experiences. It was like a dam had broken, and the truth spilled out for everyone to see.
Subscribe to my channel.
The next day, the police arrived at the parish house. Father Martin was taken away, his face a mixture of anger and fear. The town was in chaos, divided between those who supported him and those who believed the children. For Chidi and Amaka, it was a bittersweet victory. They had spoken their truth, but the scars of what they had endured would take much longer to heal. The news of Father Martin's arrest spread like wildfire through the town of Agbaja. For some, it was a relief, a sign that justice was finally being served. For others, it was unthinkable. How could the man who had baptized their children, blessed their marriages, and led their prayers be guilty of such horrible acts? Chidi and Amaka stayed inside their home for days, avoiding the stares and whispers of neighbors. Mama and Papa, who had been so adamant in defending Father Martin, now sat in silence, their guilt weighing heavily on them. "Chidi, Amaka, we're sorry," Mama said one evening, her voice breaking. Tears ran down her face as she looked at her children. "We should have listened to you." Amaka didn't respond. She sat quietly, staring out of the window, her face a mask of sorrow. Chidi, however, felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things would start to change. The church held a meeting to address the scandal. The elders apologized to the congregation for failing to protect the children and promised to make changes. New rules were put in place to ensure the safety of altar boys and girls. Counseling sessions were offered to those affected, and the parish house was closed indefinitely. But for Chidi and Amaka, the road to healing was a long one. One day, Mama Ngozi visited their home. She brought with her a small notebook and a pen, placing them in Chidi's hands. "Write, Chidi," she said. "Write about everything you've been through. Let the world hear your story." At first, Chidi hesitated. What could he possibly write that anyone would want to read? But as he sat down with the notebook, the words began to flow. He wrote about the fear, the pain, and the betrayal. He wrote about Amaka's strength and their fight for justice. Months turned into years, and Chidi's story spread far beyond Agbaja. Journalists came to interview him, sharing his words with people across the country. He became a voice for those who had been silenced, inspiring others to speak out against abuse. Amaka, too, found her own way to heal. She started a support group for young girls, teaching them about their rights and encouraging them to stand up for themselves. Slowly, the light began to return to her eyes. One Sunday morning, Chidi stood in front of a packed church, now a young man of 18. He held the microphone with steady hands, his voice clear and strong as he addressed the congregation. 5 years ago, I was just a boy, scared and confused. I didn't know how to fight for myself or my sister. But today, I stand here as proof that no matter how dark the night, the morning will always come. The congregation erupted into applause, tears streaming down many faces. The story of Chidi and Amaka became a turning point for the community. It reminded them that even the most trusted figures could have hidden shadows, and that silence only allowed those shadows to grow. And so, the people of Agbaja learned an important lesson. Trust must be earned, and justice must never be silenced. Moral of the story: no matter how powerful or trusted someone may seem, no one is above the truth. Always listen to those who speak out, and never let fear keep you from seeking justice.
Subscribe to my channel.